In the midst of cutting her own hair, Julia Maxwell asked her best friend, Mizuki Ashiya, if she was really going to be okay. Mizuki continued to cut, having heard Julia's concerns dozens of times now. She had already done the paperwork to transfer to her new school of choice. But the hardest part was convincing her parents to let her go. Julia was particularly worried because Mizuki was going to Japan all by herself, transferring to a Japanese high school, all over a boy. He must be a lucky guy, or unlucky, that she cared about him this much. Mizuki sprinted, apologizing as she rushed by bystanders. Being late on her first day at a new school was definitely not good. Entering the gate at Osaka Private High and into the building, she kept chanting, Class 1C, Class 1C, Class 1C, continuously as she searched for her classroom. She bumped into a boy in the hall, and with him picking her up, he said she looked like a girl. She gasped. She couldn't afford to get caught, so she left her bag behind with the excuse she was in a hurry. Busting into 1C's door, she hastily introduced herself as the transfer student, apologizing for her delayed flight arrival. The teacher told her it was all right, and they got to introductions. Ashiya-kun transferred here from America. The boys thought it was so cool. Then, the boy from earlier placed her bag on her head. She couldn't believe it was Izumi Sano, the whole reason she moved here. She gushed, just watching him enter the classroom. During break, Mizuki stared in awe at her classmates. While she prepared herself for this, attending an all-guys school was something else. She felt so lucky to be in the same class as the boy she liked. While Sano's friends were trying to chat with him, she interrupted, suddenly telling him she liked him, and asked to be his friend. He got thrown off, and all the friends went, "Oh!" Mizuki wondered if she said something weird. He told her, "Sorry, but I'm not into that." Oh, I get it. They think Mizuki is a gay guy. She tried to clear up the misconception, but he just cut out of class. Mizuki wasn't going to give up though. She crossed the entire ocean to be here. Seeing her chuckling, the guys definitely thought she was a weirdo. Shuichi Nakatsu thought she was a funny guy. He's never seen someone confess right after they transferred. She assured him she was just trying to make friends, and sighed, thinking Sano must hate her now. Nakatsu promised her, no worries. Sano was just sulking. Introducing himself, he claimed no one was quicker on their feet than him at Osaka High. Despite being a first year, he was already a forward. They called him the soccer team's fiery young lion. She meekly greeted him back, and he told her, no, all wrong. No one their age had any business being so mousy. After class, Nakatsu led her to the dorms. Since they were both in dorm 2, Mizuki was surprised that the school had 3 dorms, but it made sense since there were lots of kids here on sports and liberal arts scholarships. Nakatsu being one of them. He got in on a soccer scholarship. He suddenly grabbed her shoulder, wanting to get the scoop about what everyone was talking about, her living abroad. He wanted to know if it was true they went harder over there. She gave a soft response, answering everyone was different, and Nakatsu understood. She hadn't done it yet. Nakatsu thought it was important for guys the same age to know where they stood in matters of their privates? What is bro yapping about? I never had these conversations with the boys as a freshman. Dr. Hokuto Umeda kicked him over, asking how Nakatsu mistaked privates for pride. Nakatsu referred to him as Dr. Sadist. Umeda was greeted by Mizuki, and he'd heard of the new student from the States. He made a somewhat quizzical observation of her, and simply walked away, telling her to visit the infirmary should she need anything. At the dorms, Mizuki spotted Sano's mailbox. Lucky again, she thought, but then realized she was sharing a room with him. Nakatsu thought Sano was greedy, having had a room all to himself all this time. But now he was sulking because he didn't want to move his stuff, having to split the room in half. Nakatsu tried assuring her she'd get used to rooming quickly. Taiki agreed, scaring Nakatsu from behind. He was Nakatsu's roommate. Surprisingly, Taiki already knew Mizuki's name. With him staring for a while, she asked what was wrong, and he told her nothing, and just walked away. Continuing her tour, Mizuki got jumped on by a dog. Yujiro's owner apologized, and Nakatsu thought it was a bit weird. Yujiro was only nice to girls. Mizuki wondered if she'd been found out. However, Nakatsu was none the wiser, saying, based off her face alone, if she told him she was a girl, he'd believe her. But since she had no boobs, he just laughed it off. She was glad her cover wasn't blown, but not thrilled about the chest touching. Finally making it to her room, Sano seemed reluctant to talk to her. She promised that what she said this morning was just a turn of phrase. She really did want to be friends, and looked up to him as a high jumper for a long time. This made sense to him. However, he was just a regular student now. He quit the high jump. She shouted, not expecting to hear that. Sano told her to get her hands off of him. It's not like he needed her permission to quit, and shortly left the room. By late evening, after Mizuki put everything away, she stepped out, walking into Minami Nanba, the second-year RA of the dorm. He, of course, came to say hi and fill her in on the dorm's rules. He thought she was adorable and assumed she got that a lot, though she denied it. In short, taking a bath in her room was off limits after midnight, and dinner was from 6 to 9. She'd get bumped into by Senni Nakao, telling her, "I'm not letting you steal my spot as the school's idol." I'll say it, this guy definitely seems gay. He ran off screaming and whining. Turns out, people were propping up Mizuki as the new school idol over him. Other guys were even buying prints of her candid photos? What? I have never been to an all-guys school. Is that it? Are they just all gay? Nanba scolded the seller, telling him to stop taking pictures that violated people's privacy. Mizuki was starting to rethink her decision to come here. Nanba then asked Mizuki to let it slide. It's not like there was much else to do here. Nikatsu came by looking for her. He wanted to invite her for dinner and warned her about talking to Nanba, saying, "A doll like you could get pregnant just talking to the likes of him." Alright, yup, that's where this anime is going. Mizuki ended up stepping away outside, having caught a glimpse of Sano. She observed him up close. He looked like he was dozing so soundly. A tennis ball dropped. It was Yujiro, wanting to play. She tried to shush him and threw the ball so she could sit beside Sano. She poked his cheek, uttering she really did love seeing him do the high jump. She caught him before he could fall over and wake up, but he'd fall over again, this time onto her shoulder, and she'd blush. The happy dog would join in next, and Sano woke up, surprised he was on top of Mizuki. Luckily, she was able to put the blame on Yujiro and make the excuse that he looked like he was sleeping so peacefully. She figured she'd block the wind for him. This got Sano to chuckle. During PE, she pondered on why she didn't ask why he quit. She did her trial run, and the guys were totally impressed by her run time. The school was all talk about how the transfer student broke the school record for the 100-meter dash. Nikatsu felt some type of way. She was faster than him. Juso Hayato, the captain of the soccer team, would approach to invite her on the team. He wanted her as a forward. However, the track team wanted her too. And so did rugby, baseball, basketball. Every team captain wanted to recruit her, with her running even faster away from them. They were even more impressed. She got away by ducking outside of a window. She noticed some feet peeking from the bushes. It was Sano again. The guy really fell asleep anywhere. She got closer and closer to his face, almost kissing it, but stopped, hearing the captain still calling for her. She wondered what she was just trying to do. Sano woke up from all the racket, spotting Mizuki, and then the captain asking if he'd seen her. Sano told him the building elsewhere, but turning back over, Mizuki was already gone. She ran away because she couldn't look him in the eye. Nikatsu would call over to her to play with him. Simple rules. If she could make even one shot in the goal behind him, she won. She was reluctant at first, but took on his challenge, only to get knocked over and knocked out by him. Sano told Nikatsu to go get the doctor, and when he picked her up, he took notice of something. She'd wake up in the infirmary, where shortly, Sano would take Nikatsu out, and Dr. Umeda closed in on her, asking what a girl like her was doing at their school. Because he found out you didn't like the video and subscribe to my channel. Here, on My Shoujo Weekly, I'm covering all the newest anime in the shoujo genre. Looking for more? Check out my completed series playlist on the main channel. There's tons and tons of hour-plus long content that you can play and keep the bad thoughts away. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. While visiting her grandma in middle school, the TV blared as the announcer introduced the only first-year middle school student favored to win the high jump, Izumi Sano. Mizuki at first thought he wouldn't be so impressive, but she went flush. It turned out to be the first time she saw beauty in the way someone jumped. Turning back to the present, she had no idea what to do getting caught. Sano saved her by coming back into the room with her bag. Either way, the doctor was looking forward to their next meeting. Heading back, she started thinking about how someone must have carried her. Sano came to mind, making her blush, but she assured herself it was nothing romantic. Back inside her room, she noticed Sano was already knocked out. She began to contemplate on how to deal with the doctor. Whilst Sano was thinking about the moment he picked her up, he had no doubts, wondering if he really was the only one who's noticed. He couldn't make sense of it. On their way to class in the morning, Mizuki and Nakatsu noticed guys crowding around the bulletin outside. Mizuki jolted back, seeing a photo of Sano on top of her, with the headline, "Breaking! The new transfer student's a dangerous pretty boy." Seems like the usual photo guy was up to his usual antics. Sano quickly tore it down and tossed it into the trash. He scolded Wataru, telling him the next time he tried to pull some crap like that, he'd pay. Mizuki observed the whole scene, and Wataru seething after. She socked him in the face, basically telling him to stop. The doctor was quite impressed, and suddenly grabbed her by the wrist, telling her he didn't bite. He was apparently just checking on it, saying, "Good, I don't see any swelling." She pulled away, explaining she took self-defense. He thought, good again, and was still looking forward to hearing her answer soon. After school was out, she tried to walk home with Sano, but he left immediately. She knew it. He was avoiding her. She ended up going back with Nakatsu, who noticed she was quite glum. They both assumed it had to do with the tabloid this morning. Looking at her face, she sparkled in his eyes. He wondered why his heart was pounding. Mizuki would stop, spotting Sano talking to a girl. She suddenly pulled Nakatsu away. She would later talk directly to the panting dog. Her plan was to use Yujiro as an excuse. She was just taking him for a walk, while she spied on Sano. The girl, Rika, was begging Sano to jump again. She knew he was still passionate. This was all because of the accident. He denied it, but she knew the truth. If he hadn't protected her back then, that never would have happened to him. But he told her his leg was already fully healed, and that had nothing to do with it. Quitting the high jump was his decision. Yujiro suddenly barked and dragged Mizuki out in an embarrassing fashion. She went, "Gosh, Yujiro's been insisting on taking the strangest routes on these walks. He's such a handful. Goodbye." She had a somewhat sad look shortly after. She thought the two seemed like a couple. She had no idea he had gotten into an accident. She felt like she didn't know enough. She wanted to learn more about Sano. And he, of course, appeared overhead. Walking back together to get dinner, she nervously asked about the girl from before. She told him she was really cute. Rika was just a girl he knew from middle school, though. Mizuki was surprised to see that, despite Yujiro not liking guys, he liked Sano. It made sense, though, since he's the one who found him. It was just after Sano moved into the dorm half a year ago. The animal shelter was trying to cart away this puppy. Two men were forcibly dragging it along, but he kept digging his paws. Before Sano knew it, he had Yujiro in his arms and was begging the janitor to keep him. Yujiro had been living with the woman and her daughter, but the woman's new husband didn't like dogs. Bruh. Husband. It was probably why Yujiro generally didn't like men. Mizuki didn't expect to see this side of Sano. A bit later, she asked why he was avoiding her today, and before he could answer, he didn't know how to treat a girl. Mizuki was about to get isekai'd. But this is high school romance, so of course Sano would save her instead. She blushed, being pinned against the wall, and with them continuing on their way, she for sure didn't want to be apart from him. Mizuki felt determined. She would later visit the doctor and give him an answer. Shortly after, walking outside, Rika went up to her, having heard all about her from Sano. Mizuki was astonished to find out Rika wasn't his girlfriend. Rika giggled. In middle school, she was the manager of the track team Izumi was on, but she also wouldn't have been opposed to dating him then. Rika asked Mizuki for a favor. During dinner, Mizuki told Sano Rika would be waiting for him beside the park tomorrow after school. He got annoyed. He was sick of everyone being worried about him. Nakatsu then came by, telling her not to mind Sano. He was the touchy type. She would then ask for some of his peach juice, and after she drank and left, he was blown away by the idea of an indirect kiss. His friend would steal it from him, unfortunately. The next day, Mizuki would find Sano staring at the high jumpers while taking Yujiro on a walk. She felt relieved. Sano told her he did end up chatting with Rika. Mizuki realized he didn't hate the high jump at all. While Mizuki showered that night, she thought back to where she told the doctor she came to this school because of a high jumper who inspired her to start track. She really grew to love it. She dreamed of doing the high jump with him one day and didn't care if Umeda bullied her. She wasn't going to drop out, no matter what. The doctor seemed bored, however, and told her if she was trying to get somewhere by seducing him, he would have expelled her in an instant. He told her to do whatever she wanted. She suddenly hugged him from behind, and he was ambivalent, thinking women were so annoying. She asked how he figured it out, but of course, she wasn't going to fool a doctor. Also, he's gay. Sano would suddenly walk in on her finishing her shower. He had her give him his watch, and wondered why she didn't just close the curtain. But she thought it was fine, since he only saw her back. That night, Nakatsu was stuck in bed, unable to sleep. Thinking back to when Sano told him Mizuki was in the shower, he wondered why the sound of a dude in the shower bothered him. He tried to stop his mind from imagining what her body looked like. He swore he liked women. Sano, Mizuki, and Nakatsu would come to class late. They looked like they barely got any sleep and were tagged the three baggy-eyed brothers. They couldn't even stay up during lectures. So, the teacher told them to come to his office after class. When they went, one of Nakatsu's friends wasn't surprised to see him. Nakatsu seemed worried. Mizuki bent close, asking if something was bothering him. As he looked down at her beautiful face, he ran out feeling embarrassed. While everyone else went to get lunch, Mizuki told him she was off to buy some bread. But really, she was suffering from the first day of Shark Week. She never rued being a girl as much as she did on this day. On her way out of the nurse's office, she thought about how Dr. Umeda finding out she was a girl actually helped her. Still, it left her a bit conflicted. She'd bump into Rika, who asked her to stay away from Sano. Rika had a feeling she was following him around. Before Mizuki could explain herself, Rika shot at her. "You don't know anything!" This Sano, who quit high jump, who couldn't win. This wasn't him, but Mizuki told her she was the clueless one. Just because Sano wasn't jumping didn't mean he was worthless. She didn't care for his fancy titles. She just loved seeing the way he jumped. Enraged by her words, Rika was about to hit Mizuki. That's when Sano would show up, stopping her. Rika claimed she was doing this all for him, but when did he ever ask her for that? The reason he couldn't jump was that he choked under pressure, and she knew this well. He told her to never come back here, then stormed off with Mizuki. Mizuki pulled away, scolding him for talking to Rika like that. But at this point, he didn't care anymore. On her way to her room, she'd collect a package waiting for her. Noe and Sakemi saw her with the box and immediately reminded her they were buddies. These two guys just want to share of whatever was in it. Shortly after, she'd seen Nakatsu pacing in front of her door. He turned his back to her while telling her that he wanted to share some sweets his mom brought. Seeing how Mizuki's eyes lit up, Nakatsu thought she was so cute. Entering her room, she opened her box, which was filled with all kinds of snacks. Sakemi and Noe would help themselves to the ones they wanted. Luckily, there wasn't anything incriminating inside. While looking through the rest of the box, a photo of Julia dropped. Nakatsu assumed she was Mizuki's girlfriend, but he'd be relieved to hear they were just best friends. There was something else wrapped tightly with a letter attached to it. Reading the letter, she got a bad feeling about this. But before she could stop the boys, they tore the package open, revealing a dress. She played it off, claiming it was a silly joke from her brother. Sano then walked in, dropping his bag on the table and ignoring Mizuki. He'd quickly leave to take Yujiro on a walk. After a call with Julia cheering her up, Mizuki was determined to fix things with Sano. As soon as he got back, she tried to spark up conversation, but he barely replied to her before completely ignoring her again. She wouldn't let up though. She'd keep trying to talk to him at any chance she got. It had been 5 days since their fight. She tried everything, but nothing was working. Slowly, she was starting to lose hope. When Sano got back to the room, she tried striking her conversation again, but all she got were dry answers. Mizuki explained that this reminded her of newlyweds fighting. Sano was fed up. Pinning her back against the wall, he asked her if she knew why he even spoke to Rika like that. Did she ever think anything through? He then stormed out of the room. Nakatsu was thinking about how jealous he'd been when Sano walked past him. Sensing something wrong, he rushed into the room to meet Mizuki. Unable to hold it in any longer, Mizuki broke down in front of him, tears flowing endlessly. Nakatsu wanted to hold her, but he couldn't. So, he'd pat her head, telling her to let it all out. At the same time, Sano didn't get how he was the only one getting so worked up about this. Everything was so messed up. Getting back to the room, he saw Nakatsu's shoes at the front of the door and turned back immediately. The next day, Mizuki's eyes were so swollen that she couldn't get out of bed early, thanks to all the crying. Nanba approached her from behind, and seeing her red eyes, he offered to hear her out. Nakatsu would confront Sano on the rooftop, asking how he felt about Mizuki, so far as it meant she wouldn't cry like that again. Nakatsu didn't mind becoming gay. Bro is so desperate to find an excuse. Buddy, if you want to be gay, just be gay! Sano told him to stop butting in on what he didn't understand. He caught a glimpse of Mizuki and Nanba, so he bolted off to save her from that womanizer. But when he got down, they were nowhere to be found. Wataru knew where they were, but only wanted to spill it in the photos he'd release tomorrow. But under the pressure of Sano's threats, he confessed the two had gone to the student council room. Rushing off, Sano wondered why he was so bothered in the first place. Getting to the council room, he'd find Mizuki and Nanba having coffee. As Nanba stepped out, he warned Sano to stop bullying their idol. Sano would then explain to Mizuki why he quit jumping. The district qualifiers were a special meet. Doing well there earned you a recommendation to a famous track and field school. In middle school, he thought it was his last chance. But one night, he'd save Rika from getting isekai'd. If he had really tried, he might have been able to avoid that. But he hesitated for a moment, which was the reason he choked under pressure. However, Sano's mindset had changed. He wanted to try jumping again. He wasn't about to let himself live with regret a second time. Mizuki was so happy that he told her this. She ended up crying like a baby. He'd pull her close, comforting her. Mizuki blushed hard. Then, She asked what made him change his mind. He thought it was best to try and take it seriously. This made her question if he wasn't trying his best at jumping before. He'd walk away at the sound of the bell, thinking she was so dense. In the locker room after practice, Sano would see a towel and a bottle of water with a note saying, "Good work." He already knew who this was from. Entering his room, he handed Mizuki a bottle of juice, and she was happy to see that he noticed her little gesture. Then again, if it was weird for a dude to leave a towel out for another dude, was it more of a girly gesture? Meanwhile, he had no idea what to say to a girl, and she didn't know that he knew she was a girl already. So they both figured it was fine. Before he got out of the bathroom, she was already done dressing up. She was used to speed changing now and ready to head out. But he'd stop her, fixing up her messy hair like she was some little kid. In the cafeteria, he decided to order the same as her. Despite all that happened, Sano finally rejoined the track team. Now, Mizuki's dream of witnessing his heroic figure was on the verge of coming true. Turns out, everyone was having kitsune udon just like them. Noticing some guys excited about the upcoming softball match, Mizuki asked why the guys always got excited about sports. Noe yelled out that it was all because there were going to be girls in the crowd. Still, she didn't get it. He elaborated further that they were an all-boys school and barely got the chance to meet girls. So, a game against a co-ed school meant the chance to find someone. Sometimes, it even felt like the guys going to watch were more serious than the athletes. Back in class, Nakatsu was trying to pull himself together. He was blushing hard, overthinking how to talk to Mizuki, but he worked up the courage to ask her if she'd come cheer on their school during the soccer game. He was overjoyed, hearing her agree to come. Everyone else seemed confused by his behavior. The excitement got wiped off his face when Mizuki showed up with the rest of the guys. What did he expect? As the match started, he was determined to score shot after shot to show off his good side. After the match, Mizuki congratulated him on winning. With her cute charm, she said, "You were really cool out there." And this got him so thrilled, thinking she was the only one on his side. Kagarazaka would then approach Sano, hearing that he was back on the track team. They had once fought over the gold medal in high jump. He teased Sano, asking if he could jump now, or whether he'd get spooked and run again. Mizuki wasn't about to let that slide. She called him back, telling him that he was the only scared boy on the block now that Sano was back with the track team. Then, it clicked to her that she must have sounded girly right now. Luckily, he wasn't onto her. He didn't care much, but was looking forward to meeting Sano again, and the little Missy. Back in her room, Mizuki was pissed. Kagura was such a jerk. Still, she had never heard of him before. According to Sekime, he was so good that no one his age could beat his records. That was until Sano showed up 3 years ago. Since then, Kagura saw him as a rival. However, Sano didn't pay him any mind. Mizuki was so angry thinking about it, she couldn't even do her homework. Sano then let her know the shower was free to use. Looking back at her, he told her she looked like a monkey, and it was all because of that stunt she pulled. But he would thank her nonetheless. She thought he was so coy. Shortly after, they were staring at a box of lemons Kayashima's family sent. Even if they used the lemons for cooking and tea, they still wouldn't finish it all. The next day, Mizuki showed Nakatsu a way to use the lemons by trying them in a hot pot. While thinking about having a hot pot party, Kagura would meet her and ask where the track team practice was. He couldn't believe she was a guy and could have sworn she was a chick. She wasn't about to tell him anything, so he'd lift her onto his shoulder, forcing her to become his guide. Getting into the track field, Mizuki apologized to Sano, explaining that Kagura just grabbed her. Sano told Kagura to kindly put her down. He was upset, but Kagura didn't get why. Once Mizuki was put down, she slapped Kagura super hard. Before he could retaliate, Sano stopped him, asking him to back off. Asking to borrow Mizuki next time was the last straw. Sano grabbed his shirt, but Kagura did the same, vowing to crush him with everything he had. That was if he was even worth it in his current state. Mizuki wanted to talk back, but Sano shut her up. Why was he letting Kagura talk to him like that? She couldn't stand it. So, she yelled that the likes of him could never crush Sano, and he better remember that. Kagura wasn't fazed, until she called him a stumpy-legged kitsune. The last one got Sano giggling, though he tried to hold in his laughter. Even in the cafeteria, the thought of it still got him laughing. Later that evening, Mizuki went to check on Yujiro. Petting the dog, she told him about the first time she saw Sano on TV, and she was in awe. That was the first time she saw beauty in the way someone jumped. Right around then, she got into a fight with a friend in class. Every time Sano hit another personal best, she got into a little rush, feeling like she could try her hardest too. The friend from back then was her best friend now, and the one who made it possible by giving Mizuki the courage to talk to Sano Unbeknownst to her, he was close by, listening to everything she said. He'd walk up, asking her to come with him tomorrow, so he could show her his high jump. The next day, nothing but joy filled Mizuki. She could hardly believe she was about to see it with her own eyes. If only it were what she expected. Sano messed up the jump. He kept trying, but the results were the same, always hitting the bar. She begged him to stop. He felt pathetic. He couldn't even clear a mid-height jump like this. Her hands held his tightly. With her trembling voice, she promised he'd be able to jump perfectly again. He told her a guy in high school shouldn't be whimpering like this. She gave him this chance, a way forward for him, not running from his past. She was the one who showed him how to face the high jump again. So, he asked her to get it together. In the infirmary, Umeda explained to her that Sano was suffering from something mental. His body remembered the intense pain it experienced, and so it acted unconsciously on its own, trying to avoid it more. Suddenly, he'd come from behind the curtain in a ridiculous outfit, telling her it was dance time. They apparently loved the show he put on in it at his college reunion the other day. Changing back, he told her to stop overthinking. Everyone had obstacles that they themselves must overcome. It was then that they most needed someone who was waiting and ready to catch them. Mizuki didn't know if she could do that, so he told her to start with what she could. Thinking of how to cheer up Sano, she'd bump into Nakatsu, causing him to spill the items for the hot pot party tonight. Sekime then came in with drinks, and with the stove ready, they were all set. During the party, Mizuki poured a grape drink for Sano, where shortly after, he decided to step out. His head felt heavy. Something wasn't right. Mizuki would decide to go check on him, seeing that he hadn't returned yet. At the same time, Nanba came across the guys having the hot pot party, and his eyes caught the sight of the bottle of wine that had been uncorked. It seemed to be the gift meant for Umeda. Mizuki got into the room and noticed Sano's face was red. She wondered if he was sick. He'd lean in, causing her to back up against the cupboard. Still out of his sense, he'd suddenly kiss her. Flustered, Mizuki pushed back and punched Sano. Then, she'd run out of the room, panicking. Outside with Yujiro, tears poured down her face. She liked Sano so much, yet she wondered why she couldn't stop crying. The next day, Sano came to class with a black eye, unable to remember what even happened. Nakatsu felt he should have taken the day off, but Sano didn't want to. On the side, Mizuki couldn't help but feel nervous. She'd approach, handing him a handkerchief to cool down the bruise, all while avoiding his gaze. After that, she quickly left, knowing she was the one who gave him the black eye. During lunch break, he'd thank her for putting a blanket over him last night. The guilt eating her up was so much that she could barely talk to him before running again. She wondered if he really didn't remember anything from last night. As her mind flashed back to the kiss, she was flushed all over again. Namba then asked if someone made her cry. She tried to deny it, but he couldn't fool her with lies. Taking a seat, Mizuki told him that her head was having a hard time keeping up with an unexpected turn of events. He'd lean in close to her face, offering to cheer her up and make her forget about all her troubles, even give her some nice memories. That smooth talk would have worked, but she had to remind him she was a guy. Of course, he was only joking. He then let her know that a bottle of alcohol got mixed up with their drinks during the hot pot party. Realizing what caused Sano to kiss her, Mizuki was red all over again, but she lied to Nanba about knowing who drank from the bottle. He'd then give her a snack for keeping her, and unknown to them, Umeda was watching, as well as another pair of eyes. After class, Mizuki recalled her dad had a friend who started indiscriminately kissing people when drunk. She wondered if Sano was just like that. Opening her locker, thousands of thumbtacks poured out, and inside, an ominous letter read, "Kill you." Picking up a second piece of paper from the ground, it read, "Die." Sano would rip it up, claiming it was just a prank and telling her not to worry. On the other hand, Nakatsu was scared to the bone. This was obviously a threat. So, he proposed they walk home together. Mizuki insisted she was fine, and decided to head out alone. Since she was supposed to be a guy now, she couldn't be freaking out over things like this. Nakatsu would tell Sano that he was being a bit mean to Mizuki. Then, some members of the tennis team came looking for her. When they came asking Sano, he coldly told them to get lost, leaving Nakatsu wondering if he was really pissed off. In her room, Mizuki realized someone must hate her, but she couldn't figure out what she did to make them that angry. Rather than let it bother her, she didn't have time to get distracted. She was way more worried about Sano. At that moment, he entered the room, curious as to why she was worried about him. She asked if his eye was still sore, and he answered it hurt when he pressed down on it, but it wasn't a big deal. That was a relief for her. Still, she felt a bit awkward looking at his face. Refusing to let things remain awkward, she asked him to get changed so they could head to the dining hall together. It finally dawned on her that Sano was her first kiss. She'd fall to her knees. The shock had put it clean out of her mind when it happened. The next day, everyone gathered around, waiting for her to open her locker. It was all clear, and she felt a sense of relief, though it had been cut short as she picked up her shoes. They were completely soaked and dripping. Nakatsu was really upset on her behalf, but she refused to let this get to her. After all, she could simply air out the shoes. Her mind was made up. If Sano faced any obstacles, she'd be the one who was there for him. So, she didn't have any time to waste worrying about this stuff. Later, Umeda approached Sano, telling him that something was going on with his roommate, and advised him to keep an eye out for Mizuki. That night, while Mizuki was talking to Nakatsu and the others about her brother, Nakao showed up, calling it all stupid. He mocked her for being 16 and still bragging about her older brother, even claiming she was still breastfeeding, as if there were an age to stop having a cool older brother. Nakatsu wouldn't stand for it. He yelled at Nakao, demanding he apologize to Mizuki. That's when Nanba showed up, asking why they were yelling. He made it clear that he didn't like what Nakao was doing. Then, Nakao stormed off. After Nanba left, Noe speculated that Nakao might be the one bullying Mizuki. Sekime also agreed. After all, Nakao had lost a school idol vote to her once. Mizuki asked that they drop the whole thing. She felt these were just baseless accusations. The next day in class, her desk was painted boldly with the word moron. Trying to keep it together, she didn't want this to get to her, but she was finally fed up and ready to figure out who was behind this. Hiding behind a wall, she waited until the culprit approached her locker. Grabbing his hand, she couldn't believe her eyes. It was Nakao. So obvious, by the way. As his phone dropped, it revealed a wallpaper of Nanba. Now she understood his reason. Before she could explain, he shot at her, saying, "I hate you!" Ever since she came to the school, Nanba had been paying more attention to her, even though he was here long before her. The thought of it made him feel so pathetic, and Nakao believed Nanba would never notice him now. So, he told her to go tell all the teachers and students if she wanted. On the contrary, Mizuki wanted to be friends. She understood how he felt, knowing what it was like to fall for someone. That was why she thought they could actually be pretty good friends. Nakao thought she was weird, but they'd laugh about it while walking out together. Close by was Sano, who watched and overheard the whole thing. Shortly after, Mizuki met up with him outside, letting him know she caught the culprit. But they were all good now. Walking back together, she wished she could always walk next to him like this. Suddenly, Kagarazaka showed up. Mizuki immediately walked up to him, pushing him to leave, but he'd put her in a headlock. Then, he asked Sano to join the spring preliminaries, given that he had set a new record. He saw this as the perfect chance to crush Sano in front of as many spectators as possible. As Kagarazaka left, Mizuki seemed worried about his new record, but Sano told her not to worry. Afterwards, he'd go to practice his high jump, and she was thrilled to see him make the jump this time. On their way back, he asked if it wouldn't have been better for her to go home for the winter break. But she just got here, so she didn't see the need. Plus, if he was going to train, there was no way she'd miss not being with him. Two girls from Tokyo High School came by, giving Mizuki a present. Then, she recalled it was Valentine's Day, but it wasn't like the girl was asking her out. It was just a way to show gratitude for standing up to Kagarazaka. Though she felt conflicted, Mizuki accepted. The second girl gave hers to Sano. She had been a fan of his since middle school and was happy to see he was getting back on track. She also used this chance to ask him out, and seeing this, Mizuki felt a tightness in her chest. Although he declined the girl, the feeling in Mizuki's chest wasn't stopping. Later, she told Dr. Umeda what happened. He told her she was wet behind the ears and found it adorable. It wasn't like she could tell Sano she was a girl. Hence, her jealousy. She had no idea what to do about it. So, Umeda told her to simply reveal herself. But Mizuki couldn't possibly do that. She questioned if she wanted to stay by Sano's side. Did it mean she couldn't love him unless she was a girl? Mizuki felt a lot better after talking to him, and Umeda claimed they were cut from the same cloth. He too suffered from unrequited love. His best friend from high school had a cruel and terrible personality, the kind of guy who knew exactly how Umeda felt, and still manipulated while pretending to be none the wiser. Mizuki would then get a text from her brother, telling her that he was coming to Japan and looking forward to seeing her. Barging into the infirmary, Mizuki would interrupt Umeda's sweet session with his lover. That aside, she desperately needed him to lend her an outfit for a young lady. He told her to figure it out herself, but he was the only one she could depend on. Since he was ignoring her, she turned to leave, but he'd then tell her to wait. The next morning, she'd sneak out of her room, finding a place to dress up. When she came out, she was dazzling in a cute outfit. It had been so long since she wore a skirt. Thanks to Umeda, his little sister, Rio, was able to help out with an outfit. Unknown to her, Sana was spying nearby, and seeing her in that outfit made him think she really looked like a girl. Meeting up with her brother, Shizuki, Mizuki would jump into his arms. They were so happy to see each other. He'd lift her up, giving her a kiss on the cheeks. And now, everyone was staring at them. Oh god, is this for the brother lovers? Seeing she cut her hair, Shizuki was moved to tears. He really loved her hair. They'd stop to get drinks. There, he told her he was in Japan on an exchange program between their office and Japanese medical schools for 2 weeks. For these 2 weeks, she'd have to keep him from knowing she was attending an all-boys school. The whole thing was still getting to him. She told him she was old enough to make decisions for herself now. When he asked if she met the famous high jumper, Mizuki quickly excused herself and decided she'd show him around Tokyo next time. Her brother always had a thing against Sano, so it was best to keep her mouth shut. In school, while Mizuki and Nakao were chatting away, Nakatsu was filled with jealousy, wondering when they had gotten so close. Pouring out his troubles, Nakao complained about the cold reply he got from Nanba this morning. Mizuki totally understood how he felt. If your crush was curt with you, it could throw your whole day off. To him, they were the only ones who knew what this felt like. But Mizuki didn't know actually how he felt. Nakatsu would interrupt them, trying to get in on their chat. But Nakao told him it was a meeting for cute boys only. Nakatsu felt insulted. He questioned what part of him wasn't cute. And for starters, Nakao said he had no sense of aesthetics. While they argued, Mizuki used that chance to slip away. She'd then bump into Sano, asking where he'd been. He mentioned that he was talking to the team supervisor. Seems he planned to compete in the preliminaries. After school, she wished him luck as he went for practice. She was certain that he'd be able to jump when the time came. Shizuki called out her name from behind. Oops. Busted. He questioned why she was at a boys' school. She tried to explain, but he wasn't having it. Grabbing her hand, he demanded she come with him, and she resorted to biting his arm as she struggled to break free. Sano would come back, telling Shizuki to let go. Seeing this was the Sano his sister was obsessed over, Shizuki immediately accused him of seducing his sister. Oh! Shizuki demanded to see Sano's famous high jump. After all, it was why Mizuki came here. He wanted to get it over with. But Mizuki mistakenly blurted out that Sano was still recovering from the aftermath of an accident. After getting the gist of the situation, Shizuki decided his sister could remain in Japan only on one condition. Sano would have to clear the high jump before it was time for him to leave. With this, Sano decided to pick up his training before the preliminaries, so he asked Mizuki to handle walking Yujiro for the time being. By evening, she came to the field where Sano was practicing. Staring at him, she felt helpless, unable to offer any aid. Nakatsu would show up, noticing she looked down, but she assured him it was nothing, so he invited her to hang out once she was done walking Yujiro. Shortly after, they'd stop by a restaurant where he'd treat her to as much as she wanted. He usually came here, but it was his first time bringing someone. He was kind of feeling homesick. When he first came to Tokyo, he was the only one from Osaka. So, whenever he felt really alone, he'd come here, reminding himself that he wasn't alone. The okonomiyaki tasted just like home. Those words moved Mizuki, and she thanked him. Getting back to the room, she tried not to wake Sano, but he could smell the food she was carrying. She had brought some okonomiyaki for him. As he sat to eat, she mustered up the courage to wish him good luck, saying that one little thing took so much thought and energy for her. He told her it was the least she should be saying to make the jump worth it for him. However, his first goal was to beat Kagarazaka. Her thing was secondary. So he asked her to stop endlessly worrying and cheer up. Despite just eating, he asked if she wanted to get dinner. He was going to need a lot more energy for what was at stake. The next day, Shizuki was walking around the school grounds in a dark suit and shades, thinking this was the best disguise. However, Umeda and everyone else noticed him. He stood out like a sore thumb. Umeda would ask if he needed help, and when Shizuki mentioned his sibling attended this school, the doctor figured he was Mizuki's brother. He'd be invited into the doctor's office. There, Shizuki mentioned that he didn't have a bad impression of the school, but he hadn't seen anything great either. Umeda then told him about an unusual transfer student, someone who was here to chase a high jumper they admired. You'd almost think he was a girl, based on how sweet she was. Unable to handle the pressure, Shizuki would have to take his leave. Meanwhile, Mizuki was helping out Sano on the field. With their faces so close, she was flush, recalling her first kiss with him. Flustered, she'd accidentally slammed the tablet on his face. Just then, Kagarazaka showed up, grabbing Sano's collar. He asked why he was still carrying that baggage around. He called Sano out for abandoning the high jump after his injury. But Sano didn't care about whatever he said. He made a promise to Mizuki not to run away again. So, this time, he was jumping for himself, and the preliminaries were the first step in that direction. Still, Kagarazaka wasn't going to let him get away with quitting while he was ahead. Afterwards, Sano asked Mizuki what she'd do if he couldn't jump again. She told him her brother would most likely drag her back home, but she wanted to stay in Japan, here in Osaka. He told her to stay then. If that was what she wanted to do, he wanted her to follow her heart. However, Shizuki declared it wasn't his place to say. Showing up in front of them, he made it clear that he'd take Mizuki back if he couldn't jump. Time was ticking. Sano had less than a week. It seemed impossible Mizuki would stand up for him, letting her brother know that Sano was doing his best. But Shizuki claimed a high jumper who couldn't jump was nothing but pathetic. Sano didn't say a word back. He simply left when the coach called for him. Furious, Mizuki screamed at her brother, "I hate you!" Struck by her words, he'd fall to his knees. It was like all of a sudden, trying to get his baby sister out of a boys' school felt like a crime now. He questioned if God was dead. A few days later, Mizuki sat by a corner with Yujiro, waiting for Sano. When he showed up, she mentioned how she told her brother off, but he ignored it, asking what was for dinner. Then told her to forget about the whole thing. Case closed. His words would make her fall in love with him even more. A few days later, the stadium was packed with so many spectators. There, Mizuki and her friends met up with Shizuki, and she thanked him for coming. Before the competition started, she'd meet up with Sano, giving him what she thought was a good luck charm, but it was actually a love and marriage charm. Apparently, she asked Nakao for help, which honestly explains it. Nevertheless, Sano was happy to accept it. Shizuki sat beside Nakatsu, asking him what kind of person Sano was, but he'd have to watch and find out for himself. Soon after, Sano was called up to make his jump. Mizuki prayed desperately for him as he took off, and taking off, Sano floated beautifully midair, and once he landed, the bar was still in place. He made it! Seeing that, Shizuki would take his leave. Filled with so much joy, Mizuki couldn't stop crying. Sano would embrace her warmly there, until the referee broke them up. As far as high jumps went, his was still pretty low, but his form was better than anyone else's. This was still just the beginning. Kakurazaka would tell him to stop spacing out and work his way up until Sano was on par with him. Though he didn't express it well, he too was rooting for Sano. After the competition, Mizuki got a text from her brother asking her to at least come home for Christmas and New Year's. Unfortunately, Sano didn't make it past the preliminaries, but it was still a huge step for him, and as of today, Mizuki was a second-year student at Osaka Private High School. Mizuki was met with bad news with the term coming to an end. Dorm 2 was undergoing renovations, so they were all asked to go home for summer break. Nanba came by, explaining that the deteriorated water pipes needed to be replaced. In the cafeteria, Mizuki looked so dejected. All this after she made a big scene with her brother about not going back home. She didn't like the idea of having to go back to the States. While lost in thought, Sano smacked her head, telling her to eat her food properly. Staring at them, Noe said Sano looked like a mother cat, diligently grooming her kitten. Feeling embarrassed, Sano decided to head back to his room. Mizuki wanted to follow behind, but he'd tell her to stay back and finish her food. The others felt he changed since she showed up. It was like he was more cheerful and less guarded about his emotions. Unlike before, when he used to keep the guys at arm's length, he was much more closed off then, and that had him and Nakatsu butting heads all the time. Though it was more of Nakatsu refusing to let it go. Either way, Sano's aura and vibe weren't so bad now. Soon after, Nakatsu came to Mizuki's door, trying to convince himself that nothing was weird about this. He told himself he just wanted to invite her to his place if she had nowhere else to go. He was inviting her to hang out together, eat together, bathe together. He was losing his mind over the fact he might be gay. Sano would approach behind him, so they'd enter the room together. Gathering the courage, Nakatsu asked Mizuki if she'd be okay staying at his place. It was in Osaka, and they had plenty of spare rooms. He was certain his mom would welcome her. Not wanting to risk getting found out, she would have to decline his offer. As he left the room, he sank to his knees, completely heartbroken. Meanwhile, Sano then invited Mizuki over to his place. However, they'd have to share a room. But since they'd already been doing that, he let her know she wouldn't need to worry about being considerate. So, she decided to give it some thought. By nighttime, Mizuki hadn't thought of anywhere she could go. So, she forced herself to sleep. Hours later, Sano was shocked to see her go into his bunk, lying down beside him. You'd think she'd be a little more cautious. He tried to wake her up, but she'd lay her hands and chest on him, leaving him in a tight situation. By morning, she was startled seeing him next to her. He explained that she sleepwalked into his bed, and she apologized. Realizing she wasn't wearing her binder, she feared he might have found out. She'd tell him that they were both guys. In other words, it shouldn't have mattered. However, he barely got a wink of sleep. It was insane how unguarded she was. Later, At the infirmary, Mizuki offered to do any kind of chores for Umeda if he would let her stay at his place. He refused, mostly because starting tomorrow, he'd be off on a passionate vacation to a southern island. The hot soul of the southern lands was beckoning him. Just then, Rio walked in, looking completely pissed off. She reminded her brother that today was the end of term ceremony, and she hadn't been able to reach him. He was supposed to help out at the Hayama boarding house. As Nanba walked in, calling Umeda his uncle, Mizuki was shocked at how familiar the three of them were with each other. Nanba was their nephew, which made Rio his auntie, even though she was much younger. Nanba would tell Umeda that his mother was pestering him about the Hayama boarding house thing. The doctor, however, had no plans of setting foot there. That was until he heard Nanba's mom was coming here to pick him up. He was out of there on the double, telling his nephew to send his regards to the demon witch. And just as he got to the door, the said witch was right there. Talk about bad timing. Frightened, he backed up as Io pressed him, asking where he was going. As she grabbed him by the throat, he finally spilled he was going to the southern islands. She thought he was heartless. She'd been asking him to keep this summer open for over a year, but he was just being cruel. She could hardly believe they were related. He called her a dirty hag in his head, and ended up roping Mizuki into this, saying she was itching to work for Io. Scanning Mizuki's face, Io seemed to like her. Mizuki reminded her of when she used to play dress-up with Umeda. As she turned back, the doctor was already gone. Afterwards, Mizuki told Sano about the gig at the Hayama boarding house. It came with a room and board, meaning she didn't have to worry about where to stay. He decided to sign up as well, since he was looking for a part-time job. Refusing to be left out, Nakatsu would join too. So long as he breathed, he wasn't about to let the two of them be alone. At the boarding house, Io asked Mizuki to serve a plate. She appreciated her help, especially since they were so short-handed this year. The only people she'd been able to hire were two local college students. Sano and Nakatsu were also a huge help. Mizuki didn't mind. After all, they were in a tough situation, being kicked out of their dorm. Io then called over the mail worker, Makita, who was flirting with some female customers. She told him that his romantic life was his own, but made it clear that if he touched anyone, he'd be fired. Looking at Mizuki, he suddenly donned a sinister expression. While working, he'd get all touchy around and extremely close while guiding her on what to do. Noticing this, Sano was pissed. He'd call her over to help with the dishes. Then, she remembered she had to feed Yujiro, placing his arm around her shoulder. Makito asked to go with her, saying he loved dogs. Unable to simply stand by and watch, Nakatsu decided to follow them. As Mizuki was feeding Yujiro, Makita asked which one of the two boys was her boyfriend. She tried to explain it wasn't like that, letting him know that she was a he, but he took it as she liked to go by male pronouns. He'd call her Mizuki-kun if she wanted. As Nakatsu showed up, she yelled at Makita, saying she was a guy, but he loved her naivety. Walking back together, Mizuki noticed Nakatsu was pissed, but he claimed it was nothing. Being all sweaty, she decided to go change. In the room, while trying to zip up her binder, it was quite tight. Then, it hit her. She gained weight, and it was thanks to Io's delicious cooking. Over in the kitchen, Nakatsu asked Sano if Makita pissed him off. He hated the way he was all creepy around Mizuki, and it made him worry. Sano told him it was none of their business. Hearing that, Nakatsu was hurt. Unlike Sano and Mizuki, who shared a room, he got a single, making him feel lonely. He'd run away, crying. Makita then came in, and Sano's expression switched up. Makita admired the way they were all close friends, but Sano definitely didn't like this guy. The following day, Mizuki was stunned, seeing the name of one of the guests they'd have to attend to. It turned out to be Kagarazaka and his family. Seeing Mizuki and her friends, Kagarazaka already assumed the food here would taste awful. Nakatsu called him an idiot for saying that, but he'd end up getting scolded by Io. Then she apologized on his behalf and assured Kagarazaka that all meals were prepared by her. Seeing her pretty face, he was flush. Then she mentioned that his reservation was for 4 people. Apparently, his family's temple had a sudden change of plans, so he was here in his parents' place. Taking notice of Sano, his sister freaked out. She couldn't believe he was real. Her brother told her that he had made a comeback, but she never would have imagined running into him here. She introduced herself as Tamami, and she'd been his fan ever since her first year of middle school. Embarrassed by her, Kagarazaka would drag his sister away. Meanwhile, his baby sister, Kiyomi, would mistake Nakatsu for her older brother. Mizuki would then carry the little girl to her room. She'd accidentally walk in on Tamami getting changed. Luckily, it was just a swimsuit. Tamami would then invite Mizuki in. She was so happy about meeting Sano, and was glad she forced her brother to bring her here. Their folks wouldn't let her come with just friends, since she was just a second year in middle school. Staring at her chest, Mizuki was quite jealous. Tamami asked her if Sano had a girlfriend. Flustered, Mizuki answered that she didn't know, and Tamami took it as he was free for the taking. This was her chance to snag him with her hot body. Pause. I'm not saying that. Tamami's saying that about herself. Mizuki couldn't believe what she just heard. The drama continues. So subscribe to keep up with next week's part. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.